Okay. Okay.
Except my screen doesn't want to. There we are. We are recording. This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it's time for Avoid the Maze with my guest, Faith Spencer, who I met through podmatch.com. Faith is the author of a book called The Oneness Guide for Today, a book of insight for young women. So, Faith, as I said to you right before we got started, I wish I would have had someone other than my mother help give me the support as I was growing up because I kept hearing, oh, things will get better, honey. Oh, that's the way things go, honey. And it was like, I was this very sweet child because she called me honey a lot, but I didn't feel like I fit in. And even as a young adult, I wondered what my place was. And my place I started creating based on who my mother was. And I realized probably by the time I got to the age of 40, I really had missed out on a lot because I was always trying to adapt to be like my mother because she was a good mother and she kept telling me everything was going to be okay. So give us a little bit
Mm.
of background, what got you to write the book and um, what your future is.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me. I relate to what you're saying in a certain way, in that um, my mom was someone who wanted me to be like her. So I felt like, it's not like I had a lot of trauma, big traumas in my life, but necessarily. But I grew up in this family where, children were kind of seen and not heard. You just were a representative of the family. You needed to represent well. My parents were very into appearances. They were very into success, and that you should be on this certain track to success, and you should cross all your, T's and dot your I's, and that was what you did in life. And so, my sister was kind of rebellious, but I was older than her. So the spot that I kind of took in the family was the pleaser, the good girl. And so I just tried to do everything that they wanted me to do. So I did well in school, never caused any trouble. Um, I was a cheerleader. I enjoyed being a cheerleader, but I was like the cheer captain. And then I ended up being like homecoming princess, whereas my mom had also been homecoming princess. And to them, those kind of things were really important. And so, any intuition I might have had or the real me that was in there, I didn't really know that much about. Well, I did. I had intuitions and insights come to me and the real me, but it was kind of covered over by this whole program I was on of like, check the boxes of society and the school system. So that's what I did. And ultimately, I'll get to that, but it didn't end up working out that well for me. I went off I went off to college and I joined a sorority because my mom wanted to be in a sorority but never got into the one she wanted. And then my dad and my brother were in fraternities. So it was kind of like, this is what you do. You go to college, you get a good college, one with a good reputation because that reflects well. And then be in a sorority. And then I ended up being like a leader in the sorority too. And I thought, and still focused on the grades. And I just thought that if I did all the right things, that life would give me back all the good things. And
Absolutely.
and my parents had told me things like, oh, well, you'll probably meet who you're going to marry in college. And if you don't, then it's really hard to find someone afterwards, like nearly impossible. And so, so I was really anxious about trying to meet my, that's kind of my main focus in college. I got to meet my husband. And the truth is, I didn't. And so, and not only that, but trying to kind of always seek the status and the leadership positions. I was in this leadership position that didn't end up working out very well. Like I really wasn't that good at it. I wasn't good at leading these big groups during sorority rush. I was the head rush counselor. I was supposed to be in charge of all these rush counselors, and I was really crumbling under the pressure. And my we had a new advisor. She didn't think I was doing a good job, and I felt like rejected by her. And I had some romantic rejections too. And as I was getting to the end of college, I just felt like my life wasn't coming together. And I think of it like my life was this kind of dot to dot puzzle. And the dots were kind of placed there by everyone else, including the school system. And now there were kind of no more dots. It was kind of, I was going off the edge of the page. Didn't know where I was drawing the line to. I really didn't know exactly what career I was going to do. I wasn't getting married. What really was I going to do? And I just kind of fell into this huge existential crisis. And it's partly because I was looking for approval so much. I just wanted, to get all the validation, and I wasn't getting that in my mind. Um, and I just felt this emptiness that all these things I'd been striving for didn't cause me to be happy. Instead, I actually felt like empty inside. So I went through this whole existential kind of quarter life crisis, I guess is the name for it. Instead of having a midlife crisis, I had the quarter life crisis, kind of got it over with. So went through the whole, who am I? Who am I really? Or what am I really doing? And what do I want to do? So I went through kind of a rough post-college time, but during that time, of course, I opened up to things I'd never been open to before, like my emotions or my inner life and ideas that kind of more spiritual ideas, more alternative spirituality, I guess. My sister gave me a book, Louise Hay's You Can Heal Your Life. And that was kind of a new, like, she's all about how your thoughts and your mind creates your reality or your, whatever's going on. And so that was kind of new. And then she brought me to these Buddhist meditation retreats. So I learned about meditating and about following spiritual principles. And I'd grown up Catholic and I'd actually been really I really liked religion when I was young, but I got kind of disillusioned with Catholicism as I'd gone along, and it seemed like it was a lot of guilt and didn't really fit with real life that well. So I'd left Catholicism behind. And in college, I was just kind of an atheist, but now there was this Buddhism thing being introduced to me. And it was helpful. I mean, the meditation retreats I went on helped me. Like, I felt better, I felt calmer, and it was kind of giving me these principles for living. And I kind of changed my diet. I was kind of vegetarian and eating really healthy. Um, and then a couple years later, I found a book by uh, Shakti Gawain, and it was called Living in the Light. And it was all about following your intuition. And she had this exercise, and I learned how to follow, you know, kind of my body's signals intuitively. And I started to really get good at that. And so, kind of realizing that I could follow my intuition, that I could kind of chart my path based on my true self was what I was coming into at that time. And anyway, I'll just pause. There's more to the story, of course, but so that was the journey that I was on kind of in my young life to like college, post college. And I majored in journalism. I'd always loved writing, so I knew that. I didn't feel like it was a big focus though for like my mom, we talking about our moms here, like she never really nurtured that. Or, it was so just all about doing all the right things. It wasn't like, well, you seem to really love writing. Let's put you in a writing camp or, And looking back on it, thinking about reflecting on my story, maybe I could have gone to an MFA program and gotten my master's in fine arts in writing. And, because when I was 10, I had this realization, kind of going back now, but um, I had this realization that I didn't think that money was important. And I felt like my parents thought money was very, very important. And they worked, it's like working and money and having nice things. Like I felt like that's what they cared about. And I thought, well, I don't think that's important at all. I think love is important. Like, where's like love? I just didn't feel like that was a focus. It was more about the money, is how it seemed to me. And so I realized I didn't want to be part of the rat race. Like when I was 10, I said, I'm not going to be part of the rat race. I'm going to be an author and kind of write about things. And that's how I'll make my money. And that way I'm not really participating because I'd be doing something authentic to me. Of course, I didn't know that, it's hard to make money writing a book. And I never, I mean, that was a nice thought, but it doesn't happen for that many
Right.
people. But I did eventually, now, late in life, write the book finally. But, it could have happened potentially earlier if there would have been a little more encouragement. But I knew there was just, but I knew that I wanted to be an author and I knew that I did it. And fortunately, I'm supported by my husband. Does most of the money earning. So I got a chance to realize that dream. But my, but I always, but I always knew I liked to write. So I found jobs, ultimately as I was post college, I knew I was always really into health too. As a kid, I would read encyclopedias and I liked the little health information I'd find there. So I got a job at a natural health university, um, doing writing types of things. I got to write like a health clinic newsletter. And so I found things that worked for me that really reflected the authentic me. And those definitely like uplifted me and were really good um, in my life. And then I kind of kept following my intuition, little by little, finding my way in life. And what I started to notice was that I would get this intuitive signal when something was right for me, that would be like, let's say I was out looking for cars or I was out looking for a condo, which I did and was doing in my 30s. And I was single living in Seattle and I was looking for, things like that. And I would come home after I'd looked at, say, a certain car and I'd go to bed and I'd notice I had this glowing, like a glowing orb in my like solar plexus gut area, and it would feel like, what is this? Like I would have this glow. Um, of this warmth. And then I'd know, well, that was the thing I saw today, that was the right one. So I started getting these really cool intuitive signals and I followed them and things would work out really well. Like the car that I'm talking about, it was like I could afford it. It never had any problems. Same thing with this condo. Like I got the condo. It was a perfect place for me for 5 years or so. And then even finding like a practitioner, like a health practitioner, I started having these health problems. I was diagnosed with chronic Lyme disease, and so I would have like low energy, and I started really needing to follow my intuition with that because if I just did what the doctor said, sometimes it didn't have good results. So I needed to be able to follow my inner voice with that. And I was looking for a health practitioner one time, and I could kind of also see like their website, like a certain website would have like a radiance or a glow, and that would tell me that's something I should follow up on. So I would be in touch with these things. And then so I found this massage therapist that way. And then she referred me to um, this person she said did soul work. And I took the business card and I I felt like I kind of needed a soul perspective. And so I sat there with the card and I was about to call her and I noticed the same thing. My whole I felt that warmth all over my body. So I gave her a call and I felt that during the call too. And I ended up going to see her, and she was like psychic, and so she at the time I'd kind of given up on finding a partner, and I was 39 and I was still single and I'd kind of given up. And she said that I was going to meet my mate. And I just did not, I was like, what? I just wasn't even looking for that at all. I was looking to solve some kind of other problems with just trying to navigate life with my health situation. And anyway, but she also did this kind of energy work stuff on me. I got home that day and I found, I was sorting through papers, and then this listing in a catalog for a technical writing program jumped out at me. And I said, and I knew, and we'd kind of talked about what to do about my work. And I just knew, like I'd never known anything, that like I needed to do this technical writing program. And then I sent away for the folder. And when the folder came to me, the folder kind of had, I'd look at the folder sometimes and it was sort of glowing. So that was weird. That was interesting too. And I met my husband there on the very first day. He sat next to me. Um, and we like already knew each other. We had this, there was this way that we could talk to each other and understand each other like we had met before, like we were soulmates. So, anyway, so that was my kind of intuitive journey for things falling together for me. And as my husband and I decided to get married, I felt that there was a soul kind of hovering around that wanted to join us. And at that point, I was like 40, so I'd already given up on having a child too. And a big part of my path has been surrender, though. I feel that almost every time I surrender something, then it comes to pass. So the universe kind of does its thing when we let go. And so anyway, I realized, oh, we're meant to have a child. So then I had my daughter when I was 44 and a half. I had her. And then just was really into the mom thing. I just felt like, I wanted to be that mom that I had needed. I wanted to be just super attuned and very nurturing and just really help her find her path and her passion in life and just make that really, my priority, and having her be able to tune into her own sense of herself and really know herself. And also, I really wanted and still do pay attention to, what do I need to kind of guide her to do that her real self seems to really jibe with. So anyway, so I did the mom thing for a long time. But then when my daughter was around 4, my health kind of flared up and was pretty bad, like as bad as it had ever been. And it was a really scary time. I was having trouble even just like doing my daily functioning. Um, and so this was the period though when the whole inspiration for the book came to me, because I was in need of some solace and some guidance. And I found a book by Florence Scovel Shinn, and she was a metaphysical writer and speaker in the early to mid 1900s. And anyway, I just heard about her. I don't know how. I ordered her collected writings, and I started following a lot of what she was talking about. And she was talking about how forgiveness is sending out forgiveness to others, sending goodwill to others heals you. And if you're feeling resentful or angry or anything, that's going to harm your own health. And the truth was that I was feeling, when my health was not in a good situation, I was feeling resentful. There were people kind of telling me how I should parent and not being supportive. And so anyway, I would do those exercises. I'm sending, every good thing that person could want. I'm sending it to them and feeling like I really was wishing them well. And it not only helped my relationship with that person, but it helped I felt like I was lighter, like it helped me. And then also she talked about manifestation, so visualizing affirmations, and I spent time visualizing myself strong and healthy. And I just felt like I really believed it. I really saw it. I really believed it. And I just knew it. And I felt like that also helped me. And then she also talks about, following the leads and hunches given to you by the universe. And I did that as well to find the help that I needed. But between all those things, my health did a total turnaround, a massive improvement. And I've never gone back to that type of health crisis ever since then. And so then I just had this burning desire to share with my daughter these life principles. And one of the books that Florence Scovel has written or wrote back then is The Game of Life and How to Play It. Wonderful title. And for her, the game of life is not about the external, the things that you're trying to accomplish and rearrange in your life. It's not that, it's the internal. It's all the things that I'd been experiencing for so long. And then also during that period that you can be empowered to manifest and you can forgiveness is going to change your whole everything in your life and following your intuition, following, the signals that you have inside, not what other people are telling you to do. So I wanted my daughter to, and also I wanted my daughter to know another thing that Florence Scovel talks about, which is that to her, in her opinion, everyone has a destiny and what she calls a divine design. Um, that we kind of come in with and that we just need to tune into and like notice the signals about where we're being led. And, of course, just what lights you up, what feels really right deep inside of you. And so that's another thing I wanted to share with my daughter. So my idea was I'm going to get all this down. I'm going to have chapters about each of those things and have this book be something that my daughter can follow. And then I realized it wasn't just for her that, I am a writer. Would love to, felt like I would love to publish a book. And so I ultimately got it all written and started pitching it out to, and I felt like I just let the book flow through me, like really this great higher wisdom. It's not just like from my head, it's from my soul. And, but it's also really practical and there's lots of exercises in it that you can do. And found a publisher and they really liked the idea of oneness. So I think of the book not just as a oneness book, but it's a roadmap for a new upgraded roadmap for young people to follow so that they can create the life that is really that they're meant to have in a way that's right for them and just kind of quiet the noise on the outside. And so to me, that's what the book is. And it could have been titled something about the roadmap for life for teens or something. But but the publisher really, they're kind of about oneness. They've published a lot of metaphysical books, including Florence Scovel Shinn's books. And so they have a focus on that. And so they wanted the book to focus on oneness. So the title
Sure.
is about oneness, but also kind of an important point is that as I was putting the book together, I realized that I kept saying things like, because we live in an interconnected universe, you can manifest or forgiveness is useful because what you give out comes back to you, or in some ways, there's no separation between you and others. And I, um, I realized oneness was this theme in everything I was writing. And so one thing I did want to do with the book too was to explain oneness, why it's real. And I knew that there was some kind of scientific proof of oneness out there. I'd read about like some quantum physics stuff. So I really delved into the research and I spent a lot of time working on making sure I really had it right. Like And what does quantum physics say about oneness and other sciences as well? And so as I was doing that research, though, I became even more totally convinced that the universe is interconnected and it's real and it's, there's discoveries in quantum physics that really point to that we're intertwined and that we interact with everything in the external world to kind of co-create it. Um, and so I wrote kind of a little brief primer on quantum physics in kind of a fun way. And then I also go into the spiritual traditions that, as you look into that too, like so many or most spiritual traditions say something along those lines that we're all interconnected, that there's like an energy in the universe, there's something larger that we're connected to. And in Christianity, it's the Holy Spirit, and that the kingdom of heaven is within you. And in, Buddhism, they talk about interbeing and non-self, not just a self, but, part of this interconnected universe. In Hinduism, Atman, or in Taoism, or the Tao. Anyway, so I wrote about kind of a briefly the similarities in all these religions that also point to oneness, that we're part of a greater, field, so to speak. And quantum physics would say it's a field. And then all these other religions talk about it in a different way. But I wanted to get that message across. And I think that it's really helpful to think about that, you're not alone, that you are interconnected with not just everyone and everything, but a greater source of life. That there's, a benevolent, helpful source of guidance out there. I mean, whatever you want to call it. So,
Listening to your story and listening to what the book is about, parents need to read this book. And the reason why is, so many of us did our parenting the way our parents did. We learned from mom and dad, and so those are the same things that we do. And I have two sons. They're 15 years apart. So they were parented totally different, obviously. Um, and I got to the point, especially with my youngest, that I thought I had done so many things wrong. But yet, as he grew older, I realized I really didn't, because in his upbringing, myself and my husband, we encouraged him to follow his dreams, to follow what he really connected with. And sports was his connection. And he really wanted to play sports, and he could. His problem was he wanted to be so perfect that it made him an imperfect player. Therefore, coaches really didn't want him on their team. But we encouraged him, take your love and find a path with it, which he did. He's working in sports. He loves it. He's glad he's not out on the field, because that would be too much work for him, as he puts it. He also loves music. And so he has a sideline where he writes music. And when I was growing up, when I told my parents what I wanted to do, it basically was, women don't do that. You're not going to do it. This is what you should do. And again, go to college and find your mate. Um,
yeah.
I think we have to learn as parents that times are changing. And if our kids are doing what they really love, they're going to excel. And I've seen that with my youngest. He started out working for a baseball team part-time for 7 years. And we just kept thinking, oh my God, where's this going to go? You can't afford to live on your own part-time. But he was looking for his next step, and he found it. We didn't have to do anything about it. And so I think when we talk about your book, there are insights that do come to all of us. And I saw it with my son. And my son sort of shared that glow with me. And so when I started podcasting 14 years ago, I took his glow and I said, I know this is what I want to do. And I'm going to keep doing it until it's not the right path. And the path keeps continuing. But we have to be open to what's around us. And so many of us are walking around like this because we think we need to be just like our neighbor. And I'm
Yeah.
sure in some degree, the way you talk about your sister was okay following all the rules. You followed the rules, but you wanted to be different.
Well, my sister took the like rebel spot in the
Okay.
family act. And so, that's both good and bad, I guess. It's when you're in a role, it's never good. But yeah, I followed the rules to a T, even though some part of me knew I didn't share the values. But I wasn't really super conscious of that. These little flashes come to you and then you kind of push them down. And one thing I do in my book is I have an exercise about my true values and kind of looking at, I think we know things about our values, or we start to realize them as we go along. Like, what do we, and I know I did, but then I didn't use that to guide me. I just used my parents' values to guide me um, until much later. And so I like the idea of being able to, sometimes values, oh, that seems like a kind of stale concept that we hear way too much about. Um, I think it's real. Like I think maybe we come into this world with some inner sense of what we really value in life, and to tune into that and take it more seriously at a young age, I think is really good.
Absolutely.
And and it sounds like you did a great job with your sons. I mean, I love hearing that they are, living their passions, and you are too, which is just so exciting.
Well, and I think the sad part is I hear so many women, and especially once they hit 40, they think, what else can I do? I've done this my whole life. There's nothing else. I never really thought that. I was constantly looking for something, didn't realize what I was looking for, but I was constantly looking. And really, I didn't make any big changes till I hit 60. I had decided to go back to school to finish my bachelor's and get my master's. And I said that day one, I said, this is what I'm going to do. And my husband and my son looked at me and go, but you're working full time and you take care of us. And like, when are you going to have time? I said, I will find the time. I need to do this for me. Um, and they were very supportive. They said, go right ahead. And I really didn't take time away from them. I found ways to do it so that I still had everything else going. But once I completed it, that's when I said, wait a second, what do I really want to do with this? And I went back and said, I know what I want to do. I've always wanted to be in broadcasting, but I wasn't going to go to the networks and try to get in there because I figured they're not going to even look at me. That's just the way the world goes. And somebody said something about podcasting, and it was like, not quite sure what that is, but I'll Google it. I Googled it. I Googled, what do I need? I spent a lot of money, which I didn't need to spend. Um, but this,
Understandable.
yeah, but I created what I needed, and I've been growing it ever since. And from podcasting, I started writing, and from writing, I started coaching. And who knows what my next step is? And that's what I want young people to know. What you choose today may morph into something else. And
I,
that's okay because you're going with your instincts. You're going with that, like you say, that glow that says, okay, it's time to do this. And
yes.
we don't have to stay in a job for 25 years and get the gold watch and then sit on the porch and retire.
Yeah, which is so inspiring that you're looking at things that way. And I think I am too. Like, I see this big author career in front of me. I'm pitching a children's book now. Like, I don't think that my age matters, you know? And I think that I say a little bit about that in my book that I'm telling the teens that, or teens and young adults, that they don't have to know everything right now. Follow the next thing that feels right. It's not, because as you and I have experienced, it keeps unfolding and you can't really know until you get to that next step what it is. But as long as you're following that and not just trying to be what you're supposed to be. And, I think what's tricky these days is the teens are feeling, well, just high schoolers in general are feeling a lot of pressure. It's that you have to have straight A's now. Um, and everyone wants to get into the best colleges. And so you have to have all the right activities. It's a lot more cutthroat. And so I think it's gotten harder then to tune in to what do you enjoy doing? I mean, might depend on your parents, and I agree with you that parents should read the book, and it would be very helpful. It's very helpful to adults as well. But it's important for parents to do what lights them up, and then also to give their kids like that insight about following what really feels true and right and exciting to them, not just like what's going to look good on your college application. So that's kind of a force that to be reckoned with out there.
Absolutely. Well, how can we find your book and how can my listeners follow you?
Yeah, my book is pretty much everywhere books are sold. So Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all the online retailers, Target, Walmart, whatever, online. And my website, you can click on any of those retailers. My website is faithspencer.com. And on Instagram, I am at Faith Spencer. And yeah, I think those are the main places right now.
Well, we'll put that all in the show notes so there's no excuse not to find you. I hope everyone um, will share this book. Um, if you know a young teen that um, you need to get just a little gift for, go out and get the book and let them pursue their interests. I think that is so important. And I know we talk about college a lot, but I want people to understand college is not for everyone. And
Yes.
if it's not for your child, there are other avenues. Um, and I know sometimes it's hard not to get a job without that college degree, but I think as time goes on, we're going to see our world changing because number one, college is so expensive that by the time you finish your 4 year degree, you're in debt. So follow your follow your interests and let's develop into a more loving society. I love it. Thank you, Faith Spencer, for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Karen. It was wonderful.
Wonderful. Talk to you soon. Bye bye now.
Okay, bye-bye.